Bwong. Holy crap.
Hey guys, this is tm&m Mike. Today we'll be going over the story of Mitra Surik, Jedi Exile and protagonist of Knights of the Old Republic 2, also known as KOTOR 2. If you watch our last one of these on Revan, this is a similar idea in that the information that follows is what is considered the canon way of things going down. As about half to 3/4 of our story comes from KOTOR 2, which was an RPG, if you played it, your experience may not line up exactly, but this is, quote-unquote, the way things actually went down. So without further ado, Mitra Surik, Jedi Exile. Mitra joined Revan and Malak when they went off to fight the Mandalorian Wars. As a mere Padawan at the time, she was even lower on the military totem pole than the two heroic knights were. However, her skills and strategic brilliance came to light fairly quickly, and she rose to the rank of general in the military, even becoming one of Revan's most trusted allies, fighting and commanding troops in numerous battles over the course of the war, some of them the bloodiest and bitterest victories that Revan's forces ever had. So it was that Mitra Surik came to be the commanding officer at the Battle of Malachor V, the final battle of the Mandalorian Wars. The battle was bloody. Republic and Mandalorian fleets in battling orbit around Malachor V. The bulk of the Mandalorian fleet and the remainder of Mitra's forces duked it out for supremacy. Unfortunately for her, Mitra's forces were losing, vastly outnumbered by the Mandalorians, and Revan's primary fleet was not close enough to be able to help. But that was by design. Revan had planted a weapon on Malachor V called the Mass Shadow Generator. At Revan's order, Mitra activated the Shadow Generator. The result was catastrophic. We're talking first nuke dropped on Earth catastrophic. Even Revan and Malak, heavily dipping toward the dark side by this point, were appalled by the level of death and destruction that the Shadow Mass Generator caused, and they weren't nearly as close as Mitra Surik was. The weapon caused a massive surge of gravitational energy to erupt from the planet, so powerful it drew nearly all of the nearby ships, Republic and Mandalorian alike, down to Malachor V's surface with such speed, force, and power that the ships were crushed against the planet's crust, and Malachor V itself was shattered into numerous lesser-sized shards, loosely held together by gravitational flux, and annihilating tens of thousands of soldiers in the process, along with most of the wildlife of Malachor V. In the aftermath, the shock of being so near to so catastrophic a level of death killed hundreds of the Jedi that weren't already slain by the weapon itself. The ripples of disturbance in the Force were so violent that many of the Jedi were overwhelmed, dying as a result of all the chaos. Mitra would have been one of these dead Jedi, if she had not reflexively and unconsciously dampened her connection to the Force in response to the event instead. She dampened it so effectively that everyone who examined her, Mitra herself included, believed her connection to the Force had somehow been severed by the aftermath of the Mass Shadow Generator's deployment. With the war ended, Revan and Malak headed off to eventually find the Sith Emperor and become Sith themselves. Mitra, however, returned to the Jedi. You see, after the war, specifically the rather catastrophic final battle of the war, the Jedi Council demanded that all of the Jedi that went with Revan return to answer for themselves and their crimes. Mitra Surik was the only Jedi to do so. She returned to the Council not only to answer for the revanchist movement as a whole, but to defend their actions in the war. The Council did not accept her arguments, choosing instead to banish her and publicly renouncing the revanchist movement. What the Council did not tell Mitra was that they banished her, personally, because of her apparently severed connection to the Force, as it seemed to them not so much that the Force washed over her without touching, as one might expect with the knowledge of what actually happened to her, but that she was more like a gaping wound in the Force, and this frightened the Council. They did not want her anywhere near the rest of the Jedi. Mitra would then disappear from known space for the next 5 years, avoiding the entire conflict from Knights of the Old Republic 1, Revan's fall to the dark side and redemption, as well as the aftermath therefrom. By the time Surik made her way back to known Republic space, both the Republic and the Jedi Order were in tatters. The Republic from the after effects of 3 wars in the space of just a few decades, and the Jedi Order, though they did not yet know it, by the efforts of the Sith Triumvirate, a collection of 3 Sith Lords who'd risen to power following Revan's redemption and Malak's defeat. The Sith Triumvirate, consisting of Darth Nihilus, Darth Sion, and led by Darth Traya, had led a very successful shadow war against the Jedi Order, such that, when Mitra returned to known space, just 5 years after leaving a healthily functioning order, the number of recognized Jedi Masters living in Republic space could be counted on one hand. Mitra herself was lured back by Atris,
a former Jedi Council member,
in an effort to draw out the Sith Triumvirate. Though Atris didn't know the name or form of the Jedi's enemy, she knew that something was hunting the Jedi, and so, after Atris and the remainder of the Council had split and gone into hiding, they lured Mitra back into Republic space, hoping that the appearance of the last Jedi in Republic space,
Mitra Surik,
would draw their enemy into the open. This after everyone on Mariluka, including 100 or so Jedi, had been wiped out by Darth Nihilus in Atris's last failed attempt to expose the Triumvirate. As planned, quote-unquote, Darth Sion, many a Sith assassin in tow, came for Surik upon her arrival in Republic space, believing her to be one of, if not in fact the, very last Jedi left alive. With the assistance of former Jedi Master Kreia, who just happened to be in the conflicts of ships, mining stations, and explosive disasters that all culminate to make a very engaging opening act for a video game, Mitra, Kreia, and T3M4, an astromech droid, escaped Darth Sion's forces. During this process, Mitra and Kreia forged a powerful force bond.
An ability for which Mitra Surik was known to be quite gifted before severing her connection to the Force.
And in an effort to save Mitra, Master Kreia fought Darth Sion, losing a hand in the process. Because of course she did. I mean, doesn't every Jedi on Sith battle that doesn't end in a death involve losing a hand? But anyway, Kreia's sacrifice allowed them to escape the Sith Lord's grasp. And, after a long succession of get a ship, lose a ship, get a ship, lose a ship, Mitra and a handful of new companions found themselves being welcomed into the secret enclave being run by Atris, the same council member who had lured Mitra back into the known space in the first place. The two had a long argument about whether Mitra's decisions regarding the Mandalorian Wars was the right decision, with Atris ultimately allowing Mitra Surik to leave peacefully. As they were leaving, Mitra's astro droid, T3M4...
Interestingly, the same astro droid that served/worked with Revan during his post-Dark Lord of the Sith days,
informed Mitra that it had hacked Atris's records while Atris and Mitra had been in discussion. In so doing, T3 found the location of the remaining Jedi Masters. Armed with this knowledge and the Ebon Hawk,
also used as Revan's ship during the events of Knights of the Old Republic 1,
Mitra Surik opted to go in search of each of the Masters, wanting answers on the reasons for her exile, as she discovered evidence that there was more to it than her actions during the Mandalorian Wars, as we previously discussed. In her search for each of the Masters, Surik came to Dantooine to find Master Vrook. Like many planets, local governments, and even the Republic itself, Mitra found the local governance and population in disarray, the local civilization barely holding itself together, especially considering the presence of a large local gang/raider group. Mitra fought her way through the gang to rescue Master Vrook, only to find out he'd allowed himself to be captured in a half-assed attempt to maintain peace between the civilians and the violent outlaws from which he'd just been violently rescued. Their prize stolen, the mercenaries mounted an all-out attack on the locals. Mitra, using her military prowess and tactical experience, would go on to lead the civilians to victory over the raiders, placating Vrook and giving the two of them time to discuss things. Afterwards, Surik traveled to the Hutt-controlled planet of Nar Shaddaa. If you've never played the games or read the novels, imagine Mos Eisley Spaceport.
Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
On a planetary scale. The seediest, gangsteriest place in the galaxy, making it the perfect place for someone, say, a Jedi Master wanting to hide from an unknown enemy, to disappear. What was Mitra's solution? Make as much noise and cause as big a series of problems as possible to grab all of the attention in the world, including that of her target, Jedi Master Zez Kael. One blown-up flying yacht and lots of pissed-off gangsters later, Mitra and Zez Kael got to have a heart-to-heart, where we learned that behind that biker beard and hippie facade, he is in fact a powerful Jedi hippie. Basically agreeing that the Jedi Council had been a bunch of useless stuffy dicks of late, and that was initially why he'd left them in the first place. Next, Mitra hightailed it over to Onderon to find Jedi Master Kavar, one of the Jedi Masters who had actually taught Mitra as a Padawan. He had been quietly acting as an advisor to the local leader, Queen Talia, but surprise! Things are bad here too. One of the Queen's relatives, a General Vaklu, was trying to stir up a rebellion in order to gain power. After a convoluted series of adventures that lead Mitra to befriending the remaining Mandalorian forces on Onderon's moon of Duxon,
who'd taken on a new leader after their previous Mandalore's death.
Quite a feat considering she, basically pushed the button that gravity nuked most of the Mandalorians' forces, and was a well-known general of the army that crushed them. Yeah. Mitra and the new Mandalore the Preserver, led a counteroffensive against Vaklu and his forces, saving the Queen from a coup and giving Mitra and Master Kavar time to speak. Lastly, Surik traveled to the ancient Sith world of Korriban, a place that might as well be a honeycomb of old Sith tombs. Imagine a playground of all the worst graveyards in the world, smooshed onto one planet and covering the dark side vibes. Fun, right? Master Lona Vosh was supposed to be there, but instead of finding Vosh, Mitra encountered Darth Sion once again. He'd known Surik was going to come looking for Vosh, and had found the Master Jedi first, and slain her, then sat there waiting for Mitra to show up. The two dueled. Repeatedly. I mean, over and over. Mitra, force abilities restored by this point, actually crushed Darth Sion again, and again, and again. And again. Except, fun fact, Darth Sion had figured out a way to use the Force to make himself literally unkillable. It was this nifty little Force trick
Cheat.
that had allowed him to slip onto a ship in the game's opening, seemingly as a corpse, because his body is literally being held together by sheer willpower alone. Eventually, Mitra is convinced by Kreia to flee, as our Jedi Exile was really in no shape to defeat the cheaty-faced Sith Lord at the time, and so Mitra runs, passing through the tomb of ye olde Sith Lord Ludo Kresh in the process, which was an experience not unlike passing through the cave of dark side energy on Dagobah that Luke endured in The Empire Strikes Back.
That place is strong with the dark side of the Force. A domain of evil it is.
What's in there?
Only what you take with you.
Surik confronted various visions of her past, essentially facing the personifications of her personal demons, before finally emerging stronger and more whole, as one is wont to do after such an experience. After all of this, the remaining Jedi Council, minus Atris, reconvened with Mitra Surik on Dantooine to decide her fate once more. After some bass-ackwards logic and high and mighty we know the right way of things discussions, the Council decided once again that Mitra should be banished, and this time, since she still had her Force connection, they'd strip her of her powers themselves. Fortunately for Mitra, and unfortunately for the assembled council bums, Kreia chose this moment to reveal herself as Darth Treya.
As imaginative a name change as Alex Darth Malik.
Hey guys, you can click the link in the left for our last lore video.
You can click the link on the right for our last Let's Play.
And right here in the middle, that orb, you can hit that to subscribe.
Also, ring the bell if you want to be notified when we post a new video.
This is Two Men and a Mic. Thanks for watching.